Guys, listen up. As you get older, the best way to continue to look young, exuberant, and vibrant is to continue to take care of your skin. That's why I'm excited to have Teej Hanley as a sponsor of today's video. You heard me talk about them before, and you're going to continue to hear me talk about them because I believe in their products and the positive impact that they have on every man's life. Teej Hanley makes taking care of your skin so easy. They provide you with all the products you need and nothing that you don't. Every box comes with an instruction card that tells you when to use each product, how much to use, and in what order. Lapeef family, I must admit, skincare wasn't always something I always focused on, but since I started using this system, I've seen improvements in the way my skin looks and feels. And you don't have to take my word for it. They have over 5,000 5-star reviews on their website from satisfied customers from around the world. I recommend you start with the level 1 system, which comes with all the basics: a daily face wash, an exfoliating scrub, an AM moisturizer, and a PM moisturizer. In addition to amazing skin, members of Teej Hanley get tons of benefits, including at least 20% off retail price, the ability to customize your box, pause or cancel at any time, and free US shipping. And because Teej Hanley is sponsoring today's video, they're offering my viewers a great deal. Just click that first link in the description and you'll get 30% off your first box plus the free gift. Seriously, that's an amazing deal. Even though it's too early, as I often say, it's never too late. Click that link and get started today. Time. It's go time, family. What's going on, family? Welcome to Lapeef and Sundays. Let me go ahead and introduce the group. We got Mistaken, Jaya Toydestyle, Pink in the Basement, Black Spider Guy, The Men Are Not the Enemy, Balance, Luis, Nicole May, me, myself, and Lapeef Jaya. Welcome to Lapeef and Sundays on the greatest network, the Lapeef Network. What's going on, family? What's going on? How y'all doing?
What's up?
What's good with y'all, man? Good Sunday.
Happy Sunday to you.
Happy Sunday.
Yes, indeed.
What's good now? What's happening?
Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday. Sunday already, huh?
Sunday already, bro.
Yeah.
Time flies.
Robbery last night. Yeah, I watched that robbery last night.
I don't know what's going on.
Which one?
Devin Haney and Lomachenko, man.
Are you talking about? What you talking about?
Boxing.
Match.
Yeah, I thought you were talking about the Lakers.
Oh,
nah.
God.
Nah, that wasn't a robbery, man. That was just
Embarrassing.
Yeah, that was just we got more bullets than you have.
Yeah. I feel bad about that. I actually want the Lakers to go just for the image wise. I thought it'd be a good series with whoever they go. I think it'd be great for the NBA. I don't really watch the Democrats, man. I'm just not really excited. Whoever they match up with, I'm just not excited about it. So I'm not looking forward to it. But it is what it is. You just never know. Nevertheless, good to see you guys. Welcome to Lapeef and Sunday. Sunday energy today. It was pretty mild, pretty chill, laid back. And unlike Thursday, I don't know if you guys did catch the Thursday show, but it was different. It was different. I mean, we're getting there. We're getting that Mistaken.
Yeah, I like the change. It's switching up, but like you said, you're finding the right mojo.
Yeah, I had a meeting with the team, and some more changes might be shifted a little bit. I think I got a direction that it's going to go into. Still going to be entertaining, different type of entertainment. So, nevertheless, we'll go ahead and plan for it. Well, it's good to see you guys again. Hit the like button. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Shout out to the sponsor, Teej Hanley Uncomplicated Skincare for Men. 30% off along with a free gift. That link is in the description. Shout out to all my Green Gang members. I did something yesterday for the first time. just to show some appreciation to all the members. So on Fridays, I will be doing a recap for members only. It would be in the morning. And maybe every couple of weeks, I'll do this thing called Wispy Vibes. I did it last night.
Mhm.
A little rusty starting off, but it wound up being something great. Some of the members came up, actually cammed up, and it was a members only stream. So we chopped it up a little bit and discussed some things. I also got insight on what they would like to see as far as the direction of the network. A lot of questions that people don't get a chance to really ask because I'm just not talking about it. So they were able to ask some of them questions and actually get some authentic answers. So it was a great vibe. Hank was there last night. How was it, Hank?
It was good stuff, man. It was good stuff, man. I'm glad the people was able to experience it.
Yeah. Yep. So it was pretty good. I was trying to find the thumbnail that I had created, but it is up right now. So if you all remember, make sure you catch it on the replay. I just wanted to highlight that and make sure you guys tap in. And I want to thank all the members for being members, because without you guys and everybody else that's watching, would not be where we are today. But you guys constantly support Mr. BX87, Tay Biz TV, Leaked, Mr. Renegade. Mr. Renegade actually came up too. Ed Hill, Jordan Landry came up as well. Dale Matthew, I know he was in the chat. Want to thank the Green Gang again. Super chat already. Marcus Evans $5 says hello everyone. Wow, we got Spider-Man on the panel. This should be good. Yeah, we there. Nicole May, Balance, you guys there? Y'all good?
Yes, I'm okay.
Okay. All right. Feel free to cam up anytime soon. I just want to make sure you're there because I am going to play a video in a second.
I'm watching.
Okay. Balance, you there?
Yeah, she just said something.
Oh, she there. Okay. I missed. All right, thanks, team. I don't catch it all. You know, it's hard being 56. So. With that being said, man says in an abusive relationship, women should endure, and cheating is worse than physical abuse. So he said two things there. This was on the Whatever podcast. I think it's headlined by a woman named Melina. And so she had a panel, and I'm going to play that video, and we're going to dive into it. But before we do, I think it's very important to discuss abuse in general. There are different forms of abuse that I don't think people may be aware of. We just typically like to associate it with mental, and then also with physical, which is the bigger version of it. So let's just start there. Let's discuss different variations of abuse. I think that'll set the foundation. Our apologies if this is a sensitive topic for some, but I think it was good. I think these perspectives and how they looked at this is great for a discussion. So we're going to dive into it. So let's talk about the different forms of abuse. Different forms of abuse. Outside of the norm, physical and mental, what are some forms of abuse that you think exist?
Financial abuse is definitely one of them.
Why is that?
Well, because there are times where a partner or someone in the relationship might weaponize or hold over sort of like financial gain. So for an example, if you have one person making more money in the relationship, or they're trying to control how much access you have or what you could do and limit that from you in order to get you to comply in a particular type of way, that's a form of financial abuse. So I don't think it's just limited to just physical and the mental. I think, financial abuse is also another category as well.
Sexual abuse is another one as well.
Yeah, sexual abuse.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's pretty self-explanatory for most. What other forms of abuse do we have out there?
Now, I don't know if this is one, but I think it's one. So y'all can look it up and see if it is one. I think, and maybe is a subcategory of one of the other ones, but I would say religious abuse. And the reason I say that, like I said, I don't know, that this is just my own thought process, is that I've seen situations where people use religion to manipulate and abuse those who are in that particular religion. So like they might take certain scripture and use that as a form of controlling and things like that. So I don't know if that falls under like emotional, mental, or something like that, but I have definitely seen that, especially growing up in the church. I definitely have seen that be used as a weapon of control.
Yeah, I think I would probably put that under mental abuse, though.
Okay.
What other forms of abuse is out there?
I feel like knowing somebody is capable of being better and not constantly informing them of that, like whether it's in a relationship or whether you have a friend and you know that they, can hit a certain marker and you don't let them know that they're better than that. I feel that that's a form of abuse. Knowing somebody can be better than what they're showing you.
Verbal abuse.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that that's another one.
Okay.
I
Anybody
think
else?
there's also another one where I'm not sure what you would put this under, but when one parent tries to utilize the children, withhold the children away from the other parent. I wouldn't. Maybe that's a type of child abuse that could be also put under psychological, more maybe mental abuse. But definitely withholding the child from being able to see the father or mother can definitely be used as a tool for abuse.
All right.
Yeah, I would say that's under mental abuse. Yeah, I would definitely say that's under mental abuse.
Shannon in the chat says it's all mental. Y'all are discussing the subcategories. I think that's what he meant to say.
I would agree. I would definitely agree. I mean, abuse in itself is the overall title, overarching title, and then we're kind of just breaking down what's underneath the umbrella of that.
So essentially, there's like maybe 6 categories.
Six subcategories over one general,
and then there are like subcategories under those primary categories, right?
Mm.
Yeah, I think that's how far it goes.
Okay. Is there anything that we left out? Anything that we might need to identify? I was hoping to hear more from the men, because sometimes men experience abuse as well, and a lot of people may not be aware of what that abuse is. So
I feel like when it comes to men, we experience a lot of mental abuse. Oh, you're not a real man. You're not good enough. You're not strong enough. Things like that, kind of denouncing our strength. But I feel like that falls under a mental abuse. So it might just be a subcategory of that overarching title.
I think men also experience a lot of emotional abuse, but I think it goes unrecognized by men because society as a whole do not teach you guys to deal with your emotions in general. And so I think a lot of men do experience emotional abuse as well.
Right. We're taught to suck it up.
Mm-hmm.
Suck it up. You'll be all right.
Okay. Anything else? Anything we left out before we move on? Anybody would like to add anything? Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get into the actual topic itself, where the man says, in an abusive relationship, women should endure, and cheating is worse than physical abuse. I'm going to go ahead and start playing this clip. We do have 2 parts of it. We are going to unpack it and unfold this and what was said. Here we go. Hit the like button. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Again, shout out to the sponsor. Let's make sure we mute in between just to reduce any feedback.
Someone that's very, very young might be really religious and like values marriage a lot and goes into a marriage and has kids when they're like 18, 19, 20. And then a year into the relationship, it gets really, really abusive.
From who?
From both.
This is so rare.
Anyone
so
really.
Rare.
It happens.
Go on.
My point is, I'm just, even though it might be rare from what you guys think,
it is.
If it would happen, what would you recommend for those people to do? Would they divorce, or do you want them to keep going in the relationship?
Keep going. You can't divorce. I mean, that's not a real thing. You can like separate. See, his Catholic background shines through. He knows. You can separate, but you can't actually divorce. That's not a real thing.
Even though it might be like physically abusive.
You got to endure. People are too.
You want to stick into the
People
relationship.
are just.
See, I mean, look,
people
I'm gonna be
nowadays
honest.
are just pussies. Everybody fucking quits. Everybody gives up. It's too hard. I'm this XYZ. This is why I'm special, so I can fuck up this entire situation based upon me being special. And the reality is, people just haven't learned to fucking endure. There have been hard times in relationship. I'm sure you guys had hard times in relationship. Any relationship has hard times, and it is what it is. You need to push through, and you need to endure because we're in this.
Abused?
Hold on, because we're in this situation now, like where everybody's just creating this like super nuanced, like 1% example of like, well, what if the kid's fucking transgender, black, and abused, and he's a Black Lives Matter supporter? Like, cool, okay, I get like that one fucking minute
but I'm asking
situation.
for anyone that might be in that situation, what would you recommend?
Okay,
endure.
I'll tell you what.
I'll
tell you what
endure.
I would do. I'll tell you what.
Endure.
I'll tell you what I would do. If my daughter was in a relationship with a guy and she gets married to him and he starts abusing her a year into it, I'm gonna be showing up on their doorstep and teaching him some lessons.
Exactly.
That's what I would do. I also would not
if
if I didn't have the capacity to do that for some reason, I don't know. I wouldn't want my daughter in that situation, quite frankly. And I understand the argument to endure because I have people close to me who grew up in abusive households and it lasted for periods of time and it was a phase and they endured through it and they ended up raising healthy, successful families too.
All right, that's the first clip. I mean, it says that when it comes to physical abuse, women should endure. I kind of want to tackle it from two angles. I want to speak on what he said. If you disagree, why not? Or if you agree. And then also want to speak just in general with abuse. Should anybody endure abuse within a marriage? Is there a limit? I know we identify different forms of abuse, but abuse is abuse. Is there levels to abuse? Or are you in the thought process of all abuse falls along the same line? Let's go ahead and break this down. What are you guys' thoughts? I'm going to go ahead and start with you first. Men are not the enemy.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Jane. My platform, as you see, is Men Are Not the Enemy. So first of all, I think it's interesting that they're all non-melanated. That's the first thing I've pointed out is, I don't know if this is statistically correct, but from what I've seen and what I talk about and what I've come across, I noticed, first of all, that non-melanated people are definitely more, they believe in enduring marriage, in my opinion, more so than us. I believe that non-melanated people will put up with a lot of things that we won't, that brown people won't do. I do love the fact that the one guy was talking about endurance. I believe that 1,000,000%. Now abuse. So to be 100% transparent, my father was abusive. I was raised by my dad as a single father until he met my stepmom. But my mom and my stepmom, he abused both women. But as the guy said, or as I think Lapeef mentioned, that sometimes the man changes and then the guy said that the man changes and then he ends up raising pretty decent kids. So I guess I'm that kid, because my dad, like I said, I saw my mother get abused, physically abused, emotionally abused, and spiritually, every type of abuse, and my stepmom. But now my stepmom has not, my dad is a changed man. And now I have a sister that she's like 15 or so, and she's never witnessed my dad abuse her mom. So yeah, I guess it can get better, but I will say that the everlasting effects, what I witnessed, how I felt when I've heard things happening in the household, it did affect me at that time. Luckily for me, I've never been physically abused by any man. So I would like to say that, first of all, a lot of people believe that, okay, if your father abused you, or if your boyfriend or your husband abused you, that more likely you're gonna be accustomed to a lot of abuse in the future aside from that person. And I'm the first to say that that's not true, because I've never been abused by any other man besides my dad. So to sum it all up, I think the one guy talking about endurance in the marriage, I think that was a valid point. But when it comes to abuse, I do think that there's limits, and I think those limits are custom to each person. I think each person has their own limit, and whatever that limit is, that's what that limit is.
All right. I'm gonna go ahead and go to Black Spider. Oh, no, you spoke on it, right? Did you speak on this?
So, I mean, I'll speak for my father's marriage. You know, he'd been married to my mother for 40 years, and I watched my mother abuse my father for a very long period of time. And there was times where I would ask my dad, you know, why are you still married? Like, we understand, you know, me and my brothers would understand if you left, we get it, you know. And my father would always say that, you know, the whole point of marriage is death till us part, right? So I understand the endurance part. You know, I signed a contract. I said it. I'm going to live through this no matter what happens. From that standpoint, I understand. And, you know, men are not the enemy. I understand what she's saying as far as somebody can change. I watched my mother change. You know, my mother did a lot of fucked up things to my dad. But still now, as she's grown older and she's completely changed, I've forgiven her for the abuse she's done to me. And now our family, I would say, is genuinely doing very well. So I do understand the change thing. However, my thing is, at the same time, you know, it's so tricky, because everybody, like she said, has a fine line of what they can endure, how far they can go. You know, I don't think that, you know, if you're willing to love somebody, you should put them through the pain of cheating or the pain of domestic abuse. Now, you know, I feel like when it comes to cheating, it's, well, if I'm trying to sleep with you, or if I'm trying to do my best as a man to comfort you in that physical way, and you deny me, right? I feel like that's a completely different topic, because, you know, you're still at the end of the day human. Now, does that excuse cheating? No, I don't think it excuses cheating, but I would understand it more if that was the case. You see what I'm saying? Or from the domestic abuse sense of if I was continually being hit by you or put down by you, and now I attack you out of a response. Now, I'm not giving any excuse to domestic violence, but I would be more in a understanding kind of mindset if it came from that path. So that's just my viewpoint on that.
Can I add something really quick? Really quick? Okay,
Yes.
I want to say this too, because again, this is my story, what y'all talking about. It's crazy because my mom, my biological mom, to this day, she'll say, I wish I would have stuck with your dad, because my dad, my mom is lighter than me. So her skin, you know, it was bad. It was horrible. But my stepmom also, like I said, my stepmom also went through abuse before my dad gave his life to God. And so my stepmom is reaping the benefits of staying together, because now, you know, my dad is, like I said, changed and all that stuff. But my mom, it's crazy. Sorry. My mom will say stuff like, man, I wish I would have, like, looking back, I wish I would have stayed with your dad, because he was a great guy. He was a provider. He was this and he was that. And to be honest, just a side note, when I was a child, a teenager, I was really pissed at my mom. Like, I despised my mom for a long time, because I did not understand at the time, how can you stay with my dad when he was abusing you so much? But
Right.
now, as an adult, now that I'm a mom and now that I'm dating and now that, you know, blah, 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 I get it. And it's crazy how, when we're talking about battered women, it's crazy how a woman such as my mom, as an example, would still say, even going through all of that, dang, if I would have endured, I would have been basically your stepmom, living in this big house, being taken care of, blah, blah, blah. So I think we should touch on that too, is like, is it that, because I would never stay in an abusive relationship, but my mom is obviously not as strong as me. So I think we should touch on too, like, do women stay because they feel like there's no other good men out there that they can get? Or I don't know. I think we could come at this from a lot of aspects. But anyway, I'm going to be my mic.
All right. Let me go ahead and get Jay in there. What's your thoughts?
I mean, I think it's all about boundaries in terms of where you are in your life. I mean, I definitely think you should endure. My parents have been married 52 years. They have experienced that as well, where my pops, and me getting older and learning about this. I've had my issues with my pops. I've had my own issues of what I grew up and found out was abusive. There's a difference between whoopings and beatings and all of that stuff. And, it's changed behavior. People get older to the point where they're almost ashamed of what they did. Once the behavior changes, they look back and they're ashamed of it. Yeah, I mean, like I remember, and this is just kind of like an equivalency. I remember few weeks ago, I saw this belt that my dad has his name on it. I ain't seen this belt in like 32 years. You know what I'm saying? But I remember that belt, if y'all know what I mean. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, oh, that's that belt that blah, blah, blah. And he was like, yeah, don't go saying that out loud. You know what I'm saying? Like he was ashamed of it. You know what I mean? So change behavior. Uh, and you have to look at the person and decide, do you love this person enough to identify and work on the actual problem? Because if they're handing out abuse, or if they're abusing you, there's an underlying issue. So you can choose to have your boundaries where you're out in your life, where I'm not dealing with this at all. Once that happens, boom, I'm out. Or you can attack the problem. Well, why did you feel the need to do this? You know that this ain't gonna work. If you feel that you have to do this, or if the communication leads to this, this ain't gonna work, right? You know what I mean? So either you can diagnose the issue and try to work on the issue, or if that's your boundary, that's something that you can't deal with, you leave. But I think like what Men Are Not the Enemy was saying about the person, your mother, saying I should have stayed. That's her prescribing, like, we should have worked through that. We should have endured, because it probably would have been good on the back end, especially at those times. I'm imagining this was the 60s, 70s, stakes were higher, you know, black man had a lot that they weren't communicating. So, but as a black spider guy, it was the other way around. It was the female abusing the male. So during that era, the stakes were higher. People were walking around with a lot on their chest, that was never identified. There was never, the underlying issue was never brought to the table. Well, why do you feel you communicate this way? Well, my parents communicated with me like that. Who taught them that? Oh, who taught them that? Slave master. You know what I mean? It's stuff that's passed down where, now I'm sure a lot of y'all, a lot of people, a lot of black people I know, they don't whoop their kids. When I say, well, they don't beat their kids. Let me let me say that. They don't beat their kids. Like the whoopings we got, that I'm sure a lot of us got, your kids don't experience that. I would guess. In terms of, is cheating worse than physical abuse? I mean, I'm sure.
Just hold off on that. We're gonna get to that because that's the
okay.
So we're gonna get to it. All right, Ms. Taken, what are your thoughts? You're on mute, just so you know. Back on mute. Off mute. Back on mute.
Am I up now? Okay. All right. Yeah, on my end, it was still showing that it was X'd out as a mute. I am not of the mindset of staying in an abusive relationship. I don't think that, I do think endurance in a marriage is a necessity. I think all marriages will go through ups and downs. So I'm not one to say that at the sight of trouble, just bounce, right? I'm not saying that. But what I am saying, when a situation gets to the point where it is a abuse, I will never advocate for someone to stick it out in an abusive situation. Now, staying married, yes, but doing that separately to give that person time to work on whatever the underlying issues that stem from the reason that they are being abusive, I'm okay with that. But I don't think because in situations like that, the abuser and abusee, there's a kind of relationship that intertwines with that, and both people need healing, and it's very difficult to heal when you're still having that same dynamic with each other. So to just say, nope, you need to just, leave the marriage. No, but there may be time where you need to separate in order for the one who is being abused to learn, develop, and grow, to understand boundaries, to understand what, what they should or should not tolerate. And the person that is doing the abusing needs to understand that what they're doing is incorrect and learn some other skills to be able to better handle situations when they might get frustrated or what have you. But to tell somebody to stay in a situation where they're in each other's presence for that to occur, I'm just not, one to advocate for that. But I know also situations have happened. Like I think, was it Jay or somebody who said or no, it might have been Black Spider Guy who said sometimes a person is push, and then they react to that being pushed. I think that may be a little different than being being in a abusive relationship, because if that pattern of behavior is something that's very inconsistent and never happens, and then all of a sudden a person reached their limit and then they react, I don't consider that necessarily abuse. Because that's not a pattern of behavior.
All right. Let me go to you, Hank. What are your thoughts about it?
Man, I can't in my right mind tell somebody and do it, getting their ass goddamn whooped every goddamn day. Ain't no damn way I can sit there and tell somebody in my right mind, man, you just keep taking that ass with me. It's going to get better. Nah, god damn. Ain't no damn. As my daughter, I'm going to tell my daughter, you stick it out. It's going to get better. One day, he going to decide to start whooping your goddamn ass in front of you and the daughter. Yeah, it's going to happen one day. No, bullshit, man. Fuck his ass. Then you get on the defense and you put a pistol to his ass. That's what I'm going to tell you. End him. If he ever do that to you, you end him. And don't you feel bad at all, because it's self-defense. I'm not going to let somebody whoop up on me and think they're going to get away with this on a regular basis. Every morning I'm trying to love them, care for them, and appreciate them, and to take an ass whooping? Oh, hell no. Now, I understand if you don't want to divorce them. I can agree with that. Separate yourself from them. If they get some help, they make some change. They got to show that they have really changed. It's not a front. It's not for a show just to get me back in the home. Okay, I'm cool with that. But once I find him raised up again, that's it. That's it. That means whatever vices he's dealing with, whether it's alcohol, some type of gambling abuse, or is he overworked? I don't care what it is. You better get some help for that, boss. You better get some help for that before you can get me to come back in the home and expect me to continue to take these ass whoopings. Or you might end up like what Lorena Bobbitt did to LaBody, cut his Johnson off, and that's that. Fuck that shit.
Yeah. Go ahead, Luis.
Yeah, it seems he doesn't condone physical abuse, given by the video and the example that he used about his daughter, right? Like showing up to the house and confronting, his daughter's husband about, putting his hands on her. And then later he kind of interjects and brings in, talks about abuse, but I think it's vague. And I think what he was trying to hit on, not so much abuse. I think that people go through hardship. People go through hard times, ups and downs, and I think that everybody did a good job of highlighting that. I don't condone physical abuse, and thank God I never grew up in a household or in a family dynamic where I seen that or that was something that was weaponized or used. Because I understand that conversations can get passionate, things can get heated. I know we're very, in the moment kind of people, especially if you have two people who are very stubborn in some way. But I think it's just as vitally important to understand and recognize, each person, recognize your partner, and what are their triggers. How do they handle conflict? Especially, is it something that you got to talk to them at a certain moment? They got to be sitting down, because things are always going to be escalated, especially having a conversation about finances. Maybe the child got in trouble in school, he committed a crime, something like that. Sometimes these things happen. Life is always going to be lifing, and I think it's always important to kind of come back to a place of refuge where you both have a clear understanding of how to move forward, right? And I think people don't have enough of those conversations. That's why I always say, you got to always constantly check in with your person. And in terms of like those triggers of abuse, that's where a moment where conversations of like therapy needs to be bring up, counseling, especially marriage counseling, group intervention, close loved ones, families, people who are within your community or close circle. And then also, if you're big into the church, maybe bringing your pastor into the conversation about what's currently going on in your marriage and some of the hardships that you're currently going through. Because it seems like there's two things: there's stresses and there are vices. And Hank did a really good job of introducing that. The vices are the drinking, the drug abuse, the gambling, the womanizing, right? Those are all types of vices. Now, stresses kind of lean on the side of, work is not giving me enough hours. I just lost my job. Like, I just got into a car accident. I just got, like, those are just stresses of life, things that we go in through, and those are ebb and flows. But I think it's important for people to understand how to navigate those, especially with your person, that doesn't lead or escalate into those hard moments into forms of abuse, financial abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse. All these things, lead and intoxicate your relationship, and especially it can show up into your kids, because if your kids see you as the two parents constantly talking to each other in a certain way, it's okay if things get heated and escalated, but understanding that at the end of the day, we'll either table this conversation and address it another day, or we're going to address it in this form. Because by the way that you communicate and talk, it's pretty much setting a precedent of how your children should talk, communicate, not only amongst themselves but with other people. Are you?
Let me just do a mic check. Cole May, you there? She's having some audio issues. I'm gonna go ahead and speak on it. I don't condone abuse. I've seen a form of it with my mother. I seen my mother be aggressive, which I could think would be a form of abuse, and I've also seen her being physically abused. It was kind of just like toxic from both sides, right? My only concern is that abuse stems from something. It has to be something that happened, trauma related, that will cause somebody to go off the rails like that. And what we've seen, especially in today, is that you can't really measure how far it's going to go. And unfortunately, we've seen it to come to the point where death was a result of that. So a lot of times, in order for us to really understand what somebody should do, we often would say, ask somebody if they have a daughter, or what if it was your son? What if it was your daughter? And then that's when you kind of get the truth into the answer. So I think that is something that you should ask yourself before giving somebody some advice. I'm with Hank. I don't think you can really tell somebody what to endure, because it could be bad and they may not have just expressed it that way, because maybe they are trying to give that person some form of grace. But if there's any form of abuse, I do think you should probably separate. If you're married, I don't think you have to get a divorce, but there's a problem there, and I think the safety should be your number one priority at that time from both sides, because sometimes you could be receiving the abuse and you don't really know how you're going to respond. You may receive a mild form of abuse, but then your response may be something deadly. So um, just just separate and figure out what's going on. I don't think you have to jump the gun of actually leaving a marriage. If it's just a relationship, that's a little bit. I think it's an easy decision to make at that time. But if you guys got kids or something like that, or planning for a marriage, then just separate and then figure out what the root problem it is, and just creep back into that relationship, creep back into living under the same roof. That's just my thoughts about it.
I mean, one thing I would like to ask and probably interject is that, let's say hypothetically, these two people who come together and they're married, they grew up in a two-parent household. Everything was great childhood, great background, everything, right? They come together, they married, whatnot. They start to experience uh, some tough circumstances in the years to come. There's a death in the family, accident happened, the economy is not good, they're tight on finances. These are all circumstances of life. You've never faced any hardship, real true hardship in your entire life, right? And in your marriage, things are going to test you in terms of your ability to be disciplined, in terms of communicating effectively to one another, making sure you're both in alignment. And there are also things that are going to rattle that. And sort of at the moment or sight of hardship, right, or tough times, you're going to look for the exit, because those people are trying to look for the exit, what it seems like, because they've never seen or experienced like that, especially for long periods of time. So there is a line of suffering. You know, tough times don't last. However, tough people do. And those who persevere through it will see a lot more fruits at the end. Everything is every day isn't going to be sunshines and rainbows. That's just not true. That's just not how life always goes. There's always some circumstance that comes up. But how you handle that and how you show up in your relationship and everything around it will, separate you from those who allow the pressures of the outside world cave into your marriage or relationship. So I just want to yield that.
I know one of the things was when I had tell my son the same thing. First of all, I'm whooping my son's goddamn ass if he put his hands on a woman anyway. Dude, that's not what I taught you. That's not what you learned. You've never seen me do it to your mother. You never seen me do it to my lady. There's no damn way I would accept that. So yeah, that would be a problem for me. Now, if my son was the one being abused, I say, dude, walk away. You get away from that woman. Why are you with that woman? Most of the time, these people show you before you even get married. They show you probably more than likely during the dating stage. Even when you're engaged, they're going to show it then, if that's what they are. When you see them signs, you need to be worried. You need to get away. Don't keep pressing on with the relationship if those signs are there. Now, if you choose to stay in a situation like that, I'm going to think you're turned on by that bullshit. In some type of sick way or manner, you get off by getting your ass whooped. Not that you want to do it. I think you're turned on by that bullshit. Then you need some help just along with that dude that's whooping your ass. Or that girl that's whooping your ass. Y'all both need help. But get out of the situation. Divorce, no, I probably wouldn't encourage you to get divorced because I don't believe I condone, I push for divorce. But I think y'all need to have some time apart. And if there's kids involved, you really need to be apart. Because now you're impressing that same lifestyle on your children. Now you got a bad cycle that's going to continue with the kids and the kids after that. Because that's what they're going to learn. Them learn behaviors they see from them trash ass parents. They're going to continue that shit down the road, man. And it's not fair to them.
Go ahead, Jay.
I agree. No, I agree. And I do not support being abused, you know what I'm saying, or abusing. But let me ask you a question, Hank. Have you done anything that you didn't think you were capable of? Like in life, have things occurred? I'm not saying it's abuse or anything like that, but have things occurred that you thought to yourself, damn, what the hell was I thinking? Or why the hell did I do that? You know what I mean? Have you been in those situations where you've surprised yourself?
Yes.
And it could have been a dark moment for you, you know, and just imagine if you are judged in totality by that moment. You know what I mean? Like with abuse, you know, there are serial abusers. You know what I'm saying? There are people that need to be in jail. There are people that more than jail need to have their ass whooped. You know what I mean? But then there are people who have never been put in a certain situation and they made a mistake. You know what I'm saying? Like I've witnessed that and I've seen it and I've been like, okay, you know, I had to see it from a different perspective because it was somebody that I loved. You know what I mean? But what I'm saying is, I think a mistake is different from abuse. Abuse to me sounds repetitive, like it's continued. You know what I'm saying? Like this is your go-to. A mistake is, I've never experienced this and this is what I did. You know, I've had situations where, you know, somebody pulled a gun on me and my friends and pume, my feet just took over. You know what I'm saying? I didn't say, yo, let's run, let's orchestrate, dog. I just started running. You know what I mean? Like it's a muscle, but I've never been in that situation. You know, at the first time it happened, I was not in that situation. So I didn't know how I would react. You know, we could sit. No, if that was me, all I know, I saw a gun, pume, got out of there. I've had situations, you know, where some people like, well, you know, what are your boundaries? What are your, I don't know. My boundaries, sometimes some of my boundaries have never been tested. You know what I'm saying? Where I've had situations where I just started slapping people like, oh, I just slapped this dude. You know, got in my personal space and I just reacted. I didn't say, yo, I'm gonna slap this dude. I just slapped him. You know, you understand what I'm saying? So it was stupid and it was a mistake, but my boundaries were tested and I just reacted. I didn't intend to do it that way, but it just happened. So I think there's a difference between abuse and a mistake. And I think we have to identify and separate the two.
Yeah, but JP, if I'm whooping a woman's ass, that's not a mistake. That's abuse, dog.
Absolutely.
I'm intentionally trying to whoop her ass.
Absolutely.
That's not good. There's nothing mistake about that.
Well, I just
the mistake is going to be if she stayed with me. You know what I'm saying? Stay with me even though I'm whooping her ass. That's the mistake she's making by even staying with me. She shouldn't stay with me. I don't deserve to be with her. If I got to whoop her ass, I don't deserve to be with nobody.
I just wanted to speak to Hank's statement about, you know, the person staying because, you know, they must like it, they get turned on by it or something. Just like I have a cousin who worked, that was part of her job. She worked with abused victims of abuse. And there's a myriad of reasons why people stay. Some of them, one of the things is out of fear of leaving, that the person will follow through on their threat of like, if you leave, I'm going to kill you. So sometimes they stay in that situation because they've experienced where they've gotten protection orders and things like that. And a lot of times, those who are being abused and have those threats, that is when that threat happens, like because the person said that they were leaving or they want a divorce, and then, you know, that's a level of control of the abuser, and once they feel like they're losing control, they up the ante with that. So that can be a reason why they stay. Somebody brought up a financial abuse, and so sometimes it's like, if I leave, where do I go? I don't have friends or family, because a lot of time abusers, you know, isolate their victim. And or you might have family members who have said, just leave, come stay with me. And they continually say, okay, I'm gonna come. And then it gets to a point that the family member's like, he or she's going to keep going back to that situation. I'm not dealing with it. So then they don't feel like they have anybody that they can go to or have any financial support, or how am I going to leave? I got kids, things like that. So there are a myriad of reasons why they stay. It's not because they like it or enjoy it. It's just a matter of not necessarily knowing how to move, how to navigate that situation. So I just want to, put that out there, because I don't want you to misspeak on people who have been through that experience and then just say, oh, you must have liked it.
Yeah.
Well, to me, if you have kids and you stay and doing that bullshit, you're selfish already.
Well, if they threaten the kids, because that has happened.
You're not thinking about the kids.
They just had.
You can't be thinking about the kids.
Not too long. I'm sorry. They just had on the news not too long ago where the guy killed the baby, that he was on like FaceTime or FaceChat or something like that with the mom watching, because he was upset at the mom, and he had the baby and literally killed the baby in front of the mother. So sometimes out of protection, a lot of times women will stay in a relationship when they feel like the kids are going to be at risk as well. Like, because sometimes they'll be like, if you try to leave me, I'm gonna hurt the kids. So sometimes that's a way of control to keep them in a relationship too. Now, I do agree with you. At some point, you want them to get to a point where they have a plan. A lot of times they teach those who are in abusive relationships that they have to plan their escape. Like them just trying to leave can create a bigger issue, a bigger problem. So they would need to create a plan first, and then be able to carry out that plan and an exit. So, yeah, but the bottom line is, at some point you have to get to the point where you leave. That's the goal. If the abuse is that, significant, you need to go ahead and leave, but you have to do it in a safe way that's going to protect you and your children if you have children.
But mistaken.
You gotta make a plan.
To me, you got to be selfish as hell if you stay in that situation. You got to be, because you're not thinking about the kids. You're just worried about yourself now. If your kids put in a situation where it's constantly being abused, how are you thinking about them when you're staying in that situation? When you letting them continue to be exposed to that situation. So it could eventually happen if that man don't get help, that he can end that woman. That could eventually happen.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to continue to sit in that situation because you think it's betterment for the kids. No, it's not.
No, I never said that they think it's better for the kids. I think it's out of protection for the children sometimes until they get their plan together.
Ladies have too many avenues for these type of situations to go to. They have too many options, too many avenues. Take advantage of them.
Hank, just look up the stats on you. Just look up the stats on the increased chances of being killed when women try to leave the relationship. I mean, it is not making up excuses.
Did you hear what I said? I told my daughter, if that was happening, end him.
Mm-hmm.
End him.
I don't think warranting death is a good necessary thing to do when it comes to abuse either. Though I understand the emotional trigger that be.
Always important.
I don't think killing somebody is going to
let you continue to abuse me and hit me and think I'm accepted. I'm going to end you.
Well, I understand that, but I don't think death is going to solve anything other than end the particular abuse that's occurring. I think there are many avenues, as you said, to being able to stop that. But just to speak on the other end, men and women escape out of relationships differently, obviously, because men are physically stronger than women are, and women are not as strong. So they're going to try to get out of relationships that are abusive differently, and most of the time stay because of that physical threat. Whereas a man, more likely than not, is going to be able to get out of that relationship a lot faster. But I don't think warranting death is ever a good thing, even when bad things are happening, because, at the end of the day, now you're a murderer, right? I understand that, the reason as to why it occurred, but, my father's ex-military. My father had many chances. I watched my mother slap the shit out of my father to the point where he had a cut down his face, and my father's killed lots of people in the military, but he chose not to hurt my mother. And I always ask my dad again, why would you stay? And he would say, well, I came from a family where there was no father in the home. I wouldn't want my children to not have their father. Now, eventually, over time, the relationship, like I said, got better. But I did see my father have to endure a lot of physical abuse. But his reason was always because he experienced what it felt like to live with just a mom. And he didn't want us to deal with that despite going through that physical and mental abuse. My father had many chances to erect physical abuse, but he never did that. He just kind of ate it. You know, and even now he tells me he's happy that he did it because he's glad to see the strong man I became. But I still kind of feel guilty sometimes because that was the reason as to why he endured it. But I don't think death is a good thing to do. I think it's best to just try to leave as best you can.
Yeah, I mean, I think also too, we've seen situations where where the person who was abused killed their abuser, and they still treated that person who was abused as the culprit, the
Manslaughter.
perpetrator.
You're right.
know?
As a killer,
Yeah.
as like a cold-blooded killer. Yeah.
Exactly. So, we look at the example of the woman who was sex trafficked and sexually abused, and then we look at the woman who was in an abusive relationship where they all killed their lover or perpetrator, and they were treated in a very hostile manner. So I think it's always important to look at where the optics are looked at, because people on the outside trying to look in, keyword, think that they have a painted perception of, well, they should have did this, they should have did that, they should have did this. They have all these listed excuses, but they don't really understand the underlying circumstances that had gotten that person to that point. I'm sure that they tried. I'm sure that they, try to bring in other interventions, but none of it worked. Unfortunately, there's not one size fits all. And unfortunately, things got so bad that it ended up in that kind of tragedy. And I think that that's to like Hint's point that he's been talking about. I think it's allowing things to kind of get to that point, before you bring in other
Well, I
people.
feel like if it's a reaction, like Jay was saying, if it's a situation where I'm put under so much stress that now I'm reacting in that way, I would treat it differently than, okay, if you do this, this is how I'm gonna act, right? I feel like it's different how Hank would say it versus how Jay would say it. Whereas, okay, this is a reaction, this happened, I stabbed them or whatever the hell, I would understand that. But if you said from the jump, if someone does to me, this is how I'm gonna react, no matter what, I think that's different because one is pressure and one is premeditated. You know what I'm saying? That's just my view on it.
And Hank, I honestly don't think you would want, because say if the courts don't see it the way you intended, you're intending it for as protection. This person crossed the line, you did this. You're looking at it from a preventative measure or protection measure. As Lewis stated, they could be looking at it another way. Now you're a father who advised their daughter, and now your daughter's doing 30 years in prison for something that you advised them on. I'm sure that's not what your intended message was, but that's what the reality of it turned out to be. You know what I'm saying? And I'm sure that's not a good feeling, man.
Especially if they don't have no history
My man Ice
documented
Cube
of
said
it.
it best, man. My man Ice Cube said it best. I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. It's only a matter of time that's going to end up happening to that person. You're going to get abused to the point where his death is going to come upon you. It's not going to stop if they don't get help. And if they continue, you're eventually going to die. Yeah, I'm good. There's no way I would accept that and go for that and see that demise happen to my child. No.
I also saw too, like where it was saying typically on average it takes a person 7 times before they actually leave the relationship for good. So again, is I know some people's like, oh, you're making excuses. No, it's just the really reality of things, I'm not justifying anybody's behavior. I'm not saying who need to do what, because I don't know what I would do if I was in that situation. I'm sitting from a perspective of not being an abused person, being a person that is in a physically abusive relationship. So I don't know what kind of mental, emotional toll that takes on your psyche and having to deal with that day in and day out. I recognize that I'm speaking from a person that is not having to endure or deal with that. But just based on, like I said, my cousin who worked for a abusive, women who've been abused and, with their children as well, trying to get out with their children and stuff like that. And that was one of the stats, was that it typically takes a person 7 attempts to leave until they are finally out for good. So that is something to consider as well.
Yeah, that statistic.
I think it's interesting how nobody brought up religion. I know on my platform, the women, majority of the time, women come and they talk about, oh, I'm not leaving my husband. My husband does this and so. But, because I believe in Jesus or I believe in God, the Bible says, to stick beside your husband. It's very interesting how, sorry, I think my video is freezing, but hopefully y'all can still hear me. It's very interesting how we didn't bring up religion, especially we're all melanated people. Our culture depends so much on the Bible and so much on God. And just to piggyback on what Hank was saying, it was funny to me when you said that women decide to stay in it, because I do believe that as well too. There are women that literally choose to stay in it. However, you have the other portion of women, especially brown women, who they stick in the marriage or stick beside the man no matter what, due to religious beliefs, and that happens to be the background of my mom, like my actual mom. Unfortunately, she stuck. Hold on a second, stop. Unfortunately, she stood in the marriage and she took as much as she could before she decided to leave, but that was because of Christ. So yeah, I just wanted to mention the religious part of it.
So Christ actually never told us we had to stay in an abusive relationship. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, so that's like there are 2 reasons that you are given that it's okay to get a divorce, and one is abuse and one is cheating. So if there's infidelity, you're allowed to leave a marriage, even biblically. But that being said, I kind of want to address a few things. I was listening to the show before I joined. One is I had a show on my channel, Kelly Connection, with Bridging the Gap, and I had an episode where we talked about abuse in relationships, and all of my panelists were victims of abuse. And it's funny how a lot of them had the same exact things happen to them. Like, it was like, they were like, you're telling my story. That's exactly what he said to me. That's exactly what happened to me. And a lot of times addressing some of Hank's points, or I agree with you on most of the things that you said. Definitely leave. I don't think you should stay in an abusive relationship, because you never know how far it can go. I myself was in an abusive relationship. So we had that conversation. And a lot of times people don't realize that when you're being abused, it's so easy to say, yeah, just beat him up or just leave or just kill him. But you're being abused because they are usually mentally controlling you or physically controlling you or financially controlling you. So there's some type of control where you can't just rise up with all this gumption. Be like, you know what? You're not about to beat me and fight them back, because usually you're afraid in some form. There's some form of control, and they have you mentally like trapped, saying that this is okay. That's why you stay in the relationship. It's not right, but that's why you shouldn't continue to be in a relationship. Because another thing that you said, the gentleman that did put hands on me, he said that to me. In my mind, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to stick this out with you because I love you and I know you love me and I know you'll never really hurt me. And in your mind, you don't even know, like, you question, am I really being abused? Other people had to tell me I was being abused. They're like, that's abusive. I was like, no. It was just a little this, a little that. But that little thing builds up to something more and something more and something more. And you don't even realize you're in like a full-fledged Ike and Tina Turner situation. And before it's too late. And I remember he said to me, he was like, you know what, I think you might like being abused. And that's when it clicked for me. It's like, I'm sitting here thinking I'm enduring with you. And you're thinking, I like it. You're thinking I want to be abused because I'm sticking it out with you. No, that can't be. So my suggestion is to leave the situation. The person needs to know that they're doing something wrong. They need to go seek help. And he even sought help. He went to anger management courses, and there was a bunch of guys in there, and they had the same story. They made them write poems and stuff. So they had them deal with it. But still, if that's in you, it's really hard to change unless there is some type of intervention. And I would say from God. But I would not say that God wants you to stay in a relationship where someone is putting hands on you. The Bible does say, husbands, love your wife as Christ loved the church, and Christ gave his life for the church. He died for the church. He didn't abuse the church. I don't think God wants you to stay in anything where you are being physically harmed or mentally harmed. If a person truly loves you, they will not put hands on you. So that advice that the gentleman gave in the video is terrible advice. Do not stay with someone that is putting their hands on you because they do not love you. Or they have a skewed perspective of what love is. Maybe their parents abused them. Maybe they saw abuse growing up and they think, oh, this is what love is because this is what I saw happen with my parents. But that is not love. So my advice, if you're in a relationship like that, you need to get out of it because you don't know how far the person's going to take it. And that's all I have to say. But that statistic is correct. It takes a woman 7 times to actually like decide, I'm going to go. I'm going to leave this. And they say, oh, that's an anomaly. That doesn't really happen. The statistic is 1 in every 4 women. 1 in every 4 women gets abused in their lifetime. So it's not an anomaly. It's one of the people on this panel has been abused. Is that so? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say this, because there are people out here who necessarily didn't grow up in a 2-parent household. They didn't see a mother and father, dynamic growing up. And sort of, I find that a lot of people tend to look at exterior sources of example in the world, right? That sometimes are not rooted at home. And today, obviously, we're more well-connected, via social media and things like that. Do you find that the outlet images that are sometimes expressed, shown, and displayed to us, through popular culture, through media, in the readily accessible forums, are those healthy examples that we like to see, or do we tend to kind of see more of the more radical, more toxic, more abusive examples displayed to our younger people?
Is that a question for me?
For anybody on the panel.
Social media definitely plays a huge role. I mean, and just look at the manosphere in general, this space, that I'm in, and I'm sure a lot of us are also in. What sells the most is usually the verbal abusive stuff, the fresh and fit stuff, the use a hoe kind of stuff, right? And unfortunately, because that's so heavily pushed out in the algorithms, I feel like it definitely skews our view of what's going on in relationships. I had a girl make a video when I debated her, and she made a video after we debated saying basically marriage in the 21st century is the same as it was in the past. Men are very abusive no matter what they do. Divorce is okay. And just utilizing that as a reason for men to be viewed as basically predators and monsters. But, at the end of the day, I do feel like there needs to be more of a promotion of the positive things in relationships. Obviously, in the 21st century, there's so many options and different avenues available for you to destroy it. I know girls that have divorce parties, for Pete's sake. But definitely feel like social media plays a heavy hand at skewing what people view a relationship is. I'll ask some of my female followers on IG, like, what do you think ends a marriage? And like, I would say about 30% of them will say it's a man being physically abusive. So I don't know if that's them watching a lot of social media or if that's them living that. Like Kelly said, the stat is there, right? Men do, sadly, 95% of domestic violence is us. It's a real fact. It is what it is. But is it so encompassing like that? I don't know. Because again, data can also be skewed too. So
there was a time, I'm not sure if it's still going on right now, a few years back, where Kansas, they made domestic abuse legal because they were getting so many calls. They made it legal because we just can't, we don't have the manpower to go stop all this. So they just made it legal. So it does happen. And I do think it is today's time. I think the male and the female roles have been so off-put. Men don't really know where they are or what they should be doing or where they should be. So there's like this balance that they don't even have anymore. And they feel like they have to insert some type of control. And the women feel like they have control and they feel like I'm the man and they have to like show them now versus like, you know what, you just respect me as a man. And now I have to prove I'm a man. And I think the balance and women like trying to take control in the household is what like pushes men over the edge when they already have so many things that they have to deal with in the real world. Now they have to come home and fight.
Yeah, it's a fight. It's a fight to see who can be the man, pretty much. That's pretty much what's going on. So then the women become over masculine. The men that give up on that fight become super feminine. And it's just this crazy fight that just continually keeps going on and perpetuates a lot of this domestic violence, most likely, more often than not, as you said, Kelly.
Can I pose a question too? Just a thought to, process. So I know a lot in Black households. We do spank our children, right? I can't really speak on other households because I don't really know, in Hispanic households or things like that. Although I heard that they
it's the same
be
thing
getting
too.
that shoe. Yeah. But how
it's mostly Caucasian families that don't.
If we could just take a moment to kind of think about sometimes how that what messaging that may send to a child, whether it's male or female. But I'm gonna speak from a female perspective right now. If she grows up in a household where spanking is allowed, and it's a matter of discipline. When you do something wrong, this is going to be the result, right? Of you doing something wrong, correcting the behavior, you get spanked, right? So she grows up with her dad spanking her when she, does something wrong. Not that he's being abusive. I'm getting spanked. I did something wrong. So I get spanked. That's the form of punishment. So when she grows up as a female in a relationship by a male who loves her, right? Like her dad loves her. She does something. He says, this was wrong. You shouldn't have done that. And the response is a smack across the face or a hit upside the head or something like that. Do you think it is possible that sometimes the underlying lesson that some children may get from getting spanked is that when I do something wrong, I get hit? And or vice versa, as the male growing up in a household that may get spanked or hit, that he also learns that if somebody does something wrong, I have a right to correct it by being physical. So it can go either way. I'm just saying, just to pose a thought.
I think it depends on how it's done. I think it depends on how it's done. If you do something wrong and you just get backhand by your dad, that's acceptable. But if it's the biblical way of spanking, which the Bible does say to spank your children, you spare the rod, you spoil the child. The way I was spanked, if it was like God disciplines those he loves. Like there were scriptures that were in place. He read me the Bible before he spanked me. He was never angry before he spanked me. He would sit us down. He'd be like, okay, this is what you did. Now there has to be a punishment for what you did. So this is the punishment. Do you understand why I'm spanking you? And we had to he said, repeat back to me why I'm spanking you. I'm only spanking you because I love you. I do not want you to grow up and think that this behavior is okay. And then you repeat it. So we had the whole conversation. I want you to know I'm not angry. There has to be a punishment for your action. So it was like, oh, no, daddy, don't spank me. I love you. Don't. But he would always spank us. He followed through with his word. He would spank us, and then he'd turn around and give me a hug and be like, I love you. I'm not mad at you, but you had to have a punishment for the crime, right? So I was like, okay, now I understand that this is the way it works. Now, example on the other end, the gentleman that felt it was okay to put his hands on me, he a story was one time he took my phone from me because he thought I was messaging a guy. He took my phone. Obviously, you're bigger than me. You're showing me. You're aggressively snatched my phone out of my hand. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to take your phone. Because I took his phone back. He was going through to see if I was talking to guys, and he was my sister. And I was like, well, I'm going to take your phone. He felt that it was okay to choke me, to put his hands around my neck and lift me off the ground. Do I think that's equivalent? Absolutely not. Getting spanked and loved by a parent that actually cares about you versus someone putting their hands on your neck, choking you while your feet are dangling in the air because you took their phone, it's completely different. I cannot see those on the same level at all. So I think,
but do you think that the way you got spanked, but Kelly, do you think that the way that you got spanked is typically normal along across the board for everybody?
That's why I said it depends on how it's done.
Right. And so that's my point, is that, and again, I am a firm believer in spanking. I don't want you to, but again, I do think it has everything to do with how it is done. But I think for the vast majority of people who got spanked, it was no necessarily sitting down explaining why the consequence is going to be a spanking or things like that. And a lot of times, and this is just from, like I said, some reading that I have done, some just talking experiences, is that one thing that a lot of abusers and those who have been abused had in common was that was the form, the major form of discipline that occurred in a household. Now, for me, I do believe that spanking should be the last form of discipline. I think you should have like a tool case of, discipline measures, because not everything is warranted a spanking. But I know from like my dad's generation, the way we grew up, that typically spanking was the only first and foremost form of discipline that happened. And
but how was it done? Like, what? I'd like to hear other people's examples, because I only know my
I've had both, where my dad would not even spank us on that day to make sure it wasn't done in anger or anything like that. Have the conversation first and then got spanked. And then I've also had experiences where the conversation did not happen, and it
was a hurricane.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I just want to. I would like to, because I'm all about bridging the gap. I'm all about highlighting demand. So I do want to bring some lightness to this conversation. Shouts out to the men, shouts out to the Black men on the panel. What I want to say is that maybe I am that 1% that I was abused. Again, I experienced abuse as a child. But today, I've never been abused as far as like in my adulthood with relationships. So I just want to say that just because a woman was abused in her upbringing, it does not mean that she's going to choose abusive men. And I'm that statistic that proves that to be right. I think that, in a nutshell, and the women on here are not going to like me, but I'm going to say what it is. In a nutshell, women who have been abusive as a young girl, she should be more awakened. She should be more spiritually inclined. She should be more on the alert to notice the signs in men when she's dating as an adult. If you were abused as a child, why would you not be more on the lookout or on the alert, or use your instincts, use your intuition, and not just saying, oh, okay, well, like, oh, he loves me, so he treats me like that. That's not love, and I just want to say that perhaps those types of women who have been abused as a girl have put themselves in those situations. Not saying that it's okay for her to get abused. I don't know. Abuse is never okay. But I think that women too have to accept some type of accountability in the men that they choose, because you should be more on alert if you was abused as a woman. As a child, as a young girl.
That could be a trigger. You would expect that, but again, the likelihood increases. your environment, like if you grew up with parents that were drug abusers or alcoholics, the likelihood, it doesn't say that you will end up, but
I understand that. I understand that. I just want to say that we have to realize that it's still, at the end of the day, it boils down to the power of choice.
Right. But if that's all you experience until something happens to say this isn't right, the likelihood of you making that decision, and it may not be that you end up choosing the person that abused. It could be that you become the abuser. A lot of women do physically abuse men because I think a lot of times men are conditioned to not hit women back. Right? Don't do that. Don't put your hands on a woman. And I think sometimes as women, they take advantage of that fact because they don't think that the man is going to put hands on them. So sometimes being abused doesn't necessarily mean that you'll end up with a man who is going to abuse you too, although the risks do increase.
Right.
It could be that you end up being the person that is doing the abusing.
I understand that. I just want to make it clear that in this event that we're talking about, I just want to be clear that there is a statistic such as myself that exists. I have never been in a fight. I have never been in a fight. I did not fight in school. I never put my hand on my child. I never put my hand on another man, on another girl. I've never been in a physical altercation. And I can tell you, I have been dragged. I have been choked. My dad used to hurt me. But I just want to just make it clear to stand in the gap to show the people that are watching that you can overcome your past, the things that's been done to you simply by the power of choice in your mind. You have to decide, okay, yes, this is not healthy for me. This is not how I want to react. Use this to react. You can overcome. And I'm a prime example of that. And that's, I just want to bring the more lightning side to it.
I agree with that, but I also think there's two ways it can go. Like, just like how you experience abuse and you never were in an abusive relationship, I never experienced abuse. My father had to sit us down, me and my sisters, and make us watch What's Love Got to Do with It with Ike and Tina Turner, because I didn't know what abuse looked like. So, and I was like, oh my God, I would never let a guy do that to me. Like, in my mind, I was like, this is crazy. And I didn't experience abuse growing up. My parents loved each other. They were happily married till my dad passed away for 38 years. So, he loved her. He never abused his children, but we did get spankings, but they were within love. So I didn't see that as abuse. But I also know a lot of women. Because I helped minister in.
That's abuse, though. That is abuse. But go ahead.
Spanking?
Yes.
Well, you quoted the Bible, so I don't know if you're a Christian or not. But
I believe in God, yes. But when you're hit, that is a form of abuse. If somebody hits you, that's a form of abuse. It's not as in depth, it's not as intense as somebody choking you, but getting spanked that's somebody putting their hands on you. That's a form.
Well, I would say this: a lot of the mass shooters in this country did not get enough discipline. That's the reason why they were able to do what they did. Because
I think the way adults are now is because the people stopped spanking their kids.
Yes, thank you.
I fully believe in spanking your children, but in my mind, because it's biblical, it is how God ordained it. To me, that's not abuse. I think if we did follow the scriptures more closely, the world would just be a better place. But you can call it abuse. That's fine. I'm not going to argue that. But I also know a lot of women, because I help minister in group homes, that when we had conversations about how they ended up where they were, and a lot of girls got pregnant. And when they would tell their story, it's almost like, how did you end up with this guy? And I remember one girl, it was the saddest thing. She said she didn't tell him no, but she didn't want to. I was like, well, why didn't you tell him no? She said, well, I found that growing up, because she would be abused sexually by her brothers and her father, I found that if I didn't fight back, I would get hurt less. So that's how she ended up getting pregnant. She didn't want it. She just was like, I'm not going to fight him because I didn't want to get hurt. So sometimes you're conditioned to think that this is the way things should be. Yes, you should seek out help. Yes, you should. But a lot of times you are traumatized. Like, you think, this is my life. This is the way it should be. And you don't know anything outside of that unless you experience it. And you have to go seek that out. You have to get outside that bubble that you grew up in to know that there is something different, to know there's something better. Some people unfortunately don't do that, but it should be done. Like I'm very happy that you never ended up in an abusive situation, because it can happen. Like statistically, it should have been you, but it wasn't. And I'm so glad that you healed past that point, you know, and you went and got help, and now you're helping other women. But a lot of people just don't get that help. They don't go seek it out.
Kelly,
Majority of people
so
don't.
I'm sorry, y'all. So Kelly, I would like to know, Kelly. So if you never was abused as a young girl,
yeah,
and I'm being really this is a real question. I'm being serious. How did you get tricked? I feel like if you never was abused as a child, I feel like you got tricked into this relationship that you're talking about with this guy. Because you know. But anyway, how did you get into an abusive relationship? Like, how did it start? And like, why didn't you leave on the first incident? Can y'all hear me?
No, I can hear you. Her camera went down. What? Kelly, you there?
Yeah, I think she muted. Okay.
Kelly, you're muted.
Can you hear me? Yeah, I heard the question.
Okay.
So my story is not one of being tricked. The gentleman that I was with, we were actually engaged. We were about to get married. He didn't start his abusive activity until after we got engaged. And then he felt that he was more, like I was more like his property. And that's the way that he grew up. He thought that women belonged to the man. So I couldn't go do things that never happened while we were dating. I wasn't allowed to go do things. I wasn't allowed to be, had to answer my phone. Any place I was, he needed to know where I was. If I didn't answer my phone, he would call other people around me to see where I was. But all this started after we were engaged. That's why I decided not to marry him. Because I was like, I can't live the rest of my life like this. But before he was relaxed, he was chill, he was cool. We had fun together. We did everything together.
So marriage was the trigger for the activation.
Yeah, like once it was an engagement, it's like, now you're mine. And like he was never like that before. So
so you never actually married him?
I did not marry him.
Okay, that's
smart.
Okay.
All right. I do want to finish coming through this the second part of this video. If you guys haven't already, hit the like button. Also make sure you subscribe to the channel. Let me come through these super chats real quick. Marcus Evans, $2 says, what about spiritual abuse?
Spiritual abuse.
That was kind of what I was talking about when I said religious abuse, where the religion is used to excuse abusive behavior.
Gotcha.
I don't know. Not everybody's religious, though. So, I mean, for me, that wouldn't necessarily work too grand if someone tried to do that. But I guess, you know, it would depend on your upbringing. I mean, most people nowadays aren't religious or spiritual to a large degree. So, I mean, I feel like if you're in a subsect of society that's very religious, maybe that would work more. But for me, if somebody tried to do that, I'd be like, oh, okay, goodbye. It wouldn't work. So, I mean, I feel like it depends.
I think men experience more spiritual abuse. I think, and to me, how I identify spiritual abuse is anything that's not physical abuse. But I feel like, yeah, exactly. Spiritual abuse, mental abuse, I feel like it's along the same lines. I feel like men go through more, not go through more, but I feel like it has a long-term effect more so on men. Because, you know, it's hard. Like I think somebody mentioned earlier how their mom talked down on them. And I get a lot of men on my platform talking about, you know, their moms verbally abusing them or spiritual, you know, and spiritual abuse, verbal abuse. I think all of that is actually more harmful than physical abuse.
Oh yeah, my mom did that to me for a long period of time because how she was raised, and it really destroyed a lot of the things that I was doing. And it wasn't until I went into the military and came out of that I was able to recognize that my mother was dealing with trauma she had when she was a child and was putting that on me. So once I was able to address what the problem was and then confronted her with that, all of that ended.
I actually agree. I think it happens differently. I think women experience physical abuse at a higher rate than men, but I would dare to say that I think probably men experience, you know, emotional, verbal abuse maybe at higher rates, only because I think that's the way that women try to gain control and power, because they know they can't physically, overtake
Right.
it. And so they're able to do it more verbally, emotionally. So I would think that that's probably how it balances out. So really, if we want to look at it, probably men are abused at the same rate that women are, just in different form.
If you want to see a good, clear example of what that religious or spiritual abuse looks like, just watch the Netflix series Keep, Sweet, Pray, and Obey. That will give you a good insight of what that looks like.
What is it?
Keep, sweet, pray, and obey.
Keep, sleep, pray, and obey.
All right, let me finish.
Really good.
Let me finish super chats real quick. Enter the Black Dragon $5 says, during a marriage over time, it becomes harder to open up and honest with your spouse about needs and requirements than the primary method of communicating. And I don't know. And
I think that's where the best friend relationships come in. That though, a lot of people that come on my platform, you can tell by the way that they speak that they're not in a best friend relationship with their partner. Like your partner needs to be your best friend. If you can't even, if communication is not a foundation, then your whole relationship is gonna be, it's not gonna work. So if you have problems talking to your spouse while you're dating, you should definitely not go down the aisle with it. If your spouse can't be your best friend, you shouldn't be walking down the aisle with that person.
I agree. Can we let JR finish the super chats?
Marcus Evans, keep oh, excuse me. Keep men are not these enemies on the panel. John the Baptist $5 says a large percent of men don't practice physical abuse, nor do we support it. We groom to protect women, even if it is the woman are beating the men. Marcus Evans $2 says mistaken likes making excuses for women. Jacque Carter 199. Corporal punishment is not abuse, lady. Marcus Evans $5 says, is there a way to heal from spiritual abuse?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
it's finding yourself.
You can heal from any kind of abuse. It's just the work that is going to take in order to do it. And a lot of times, like they say, hurt people. If you never have that intervention to learn how to heal from the hurt that you've had, then you will continue to do that.
I want to give that person direct advice who said, is there a way to heal from spiritual abuse?
Because we have to let him finish the super chats.
We do.
Okay.
No, I'm done super chats. I just wanted to get into the video real quick. Okay.
My bad, Lapeef. My bad.
No. You all good. You play the video. I'm gonna play a little bit of it. I'm gonna stop talking, then we'll get through because I think it's a little bit on the long side. So here we go.
They are extreme.
I agree with that.
I want to ask one more scenario, okay?
Please.
What about if two people get married, they have a kid, and then the wife starts cheating? Do you think they should divorce?
Absolutely.
They should divorce then?
Jesus himself said.
But it wasn't
hold on. Jesus himself
and you could
said,
work things through, right?
Jesus himself said in cases of adultery, divorce is
So you think that
permissible.
divorce is worse than physical abuse?
For the children?
Or cheating, sorry. You think that cheating is worse than physical abuse?
For the children, yes.
Absolutely. I think I'm not going to say this is worse.
Divorce is worse for the children.
I already said that if a woman's
Cheating,
getting abused, I think she should leave. Like, I mean, if it's a brief temporary thing, like
what if it's mental abuse?
Okay, now
Do you think
Let's cut and dry.
if
You
it's
are
cheating
setting your
mental abuse?
child up for failure as well if you stay in like these abusive
Look, that's not
marriages.
true. Look.
Yes, it is, because you're literally every single psychologist. We can like Google it right now if you want. Will agree that the patterns that you have at home are going to replicate in their future, right? So if this child gets used to seeing their other loved ones and probably them being talked down upon, being treated badly, they normalize that behavior. So you're setting
it does get passed down generations.
Yeah.
You're correct.
Get some help. You're setting them up for failure in the workplace and relationships.
I just want you.
But there's probably going to be cases where there are like really, really horrible marriages. And my question is, would you recommend those people to like choose happiness and like divorce and try to like be on their own because being in the relationship makes them really, really unhappy, maybe even suicidal, who knows? Do you think they should rather stay just because they.
But you're
swore,
trying.
I think they should go to
you're
church
taking
and
a,
return to God.
Like you're taking a very,
so that
very.
these
but I
issues
don't,
go away.
Yeah,
You're
I don't
taking
think
a
the
very.
issues
Wait,
would go
hold
away.
on.
Let's say if your partner is being really, really, really bad to you, and there's like so many things that he needs therapy, but he's not doing it. Do you think that the wife in that case should stick around for that, even though it might be really bad for her and the child?
But
It's
you're
better to
taking
stick around
you're
for
taking
that
an
than-
extremely
than
niche.
separating.
Hold on, you're taking an extremely
I don't think it's very
niche
extreme.
example. You are.
I don't think it is.
Okay, well,
I
you
think
are.
there's a lot of
So listen, you're taking an
relationships out there
extremely
that-
niche example and you're blanket statementing it for like the entire solution
I'm not saying
of
it at all.
divorce.
I think that. I
mean,
it
you
could
are
be-
though.
No, I'm not saying.
But you're saying like,
no,
what if
wait,
the
wait.
guy is like beating the wife?
Yeah, I'm asking
and then
you what
like
you
the
think,
kids
what you
are
would
like
recommend for
fucking
the people.
retarded.
Wait,
They love Black Lives Matter.
Because I never see you conservatives talk about problems like this. That won't,
I'm
like,
not a
that is
conservative,
happening.
first of all.
Okay,
How dare
but
you
I never
assume
see-
my
I never
political
see you talk
affiliation?
about problems that might happen in a marriage after
Typically
you
when
get
his
married.
points are
I
raised,
always
it's
see
to
you
poison
guys
the
talk
well.
about. I always see you guys talk about how you get there and all these things. But when it actually comes to like happiness and like mental health, I never see you talk about any of it. And like
This is
what to
why-
do in
Mental health is
situations
a
like
side-
this.
Melina, I want to make
Yeah.
the point. This is why I tell people that they need to find God and go to church, because it's like all of these problems that you're describing, if somebody authentically has a relationship with Christ and they're living in alignment with the word, like it's going to mitigate 99%
Yes,
of
but
these
I
issues.
do know conservatives that is going
Yeah,
to
there's
church
fucked
and
up
they
people out
still
there.
abuse their partners.
Physically-
And I'm
wait,
asking-
you-
There's fucked up
wait,
people
wait,
who
wait,
are
wait,
going
hold
to
on, hold on.
I'm asking you if you're going to stick
So
up
wait,
for
wait,
those
you
people.
know
And what
conservative.
would you say? Would you tell them to divorce it? Would you tell them to
Time
stick
out, time out.
along
You-
in an abusive relationship?
You say you know conservative men right now that are beating their wives?
No, I'm saying that they probably exist, right? I mean, I'm asking you, what would you say to help those
But what would you
cases?
say to liberal men who are beating their wives?
She would say
Yeah, but
don't
it's not the
divorce.
same.
divorce.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you divorce. But like,
Stop
but
All right, there's some more of the video. I'll play it afterwards, but you guys get in the context. So, what do you guys thoughts about what was said? I'm gonna go to Hink and Jay.
You want me to
Can't
go
hear.
Jay? I mean, don't mind.
He's saying, "Go ahead, Hank."
You got it, Hank.
I got you. Yeah, I mean, just watching this, still on this video, talking about my man said he's gonna divorce his wife because she gets some stray dick. That's a problem. But wants her to stay around, get that ass whooped on a regular basis, endure. Yeah, man, I these white boys are crazy, man. What's wrong with these dudes? There's no way I could sit there and say it's okay on both sides, whether it's physical abuse or somebody cheating on me. Look, if the woman I'm with cheat on me, man, I gotta let her go to the streets, man. I gotta leave her at a damn restaurant. Nothing I could do about her, because that's where she wanted to be at. Because that's why she went out there and got some stray. Now, if I whoop her ass because she cheated, that's a problem too. I'm a problem because I'm whooping a woman's ass. Even though I feel like I try to justify it because she cheated on me, there's no reason to whoop a woman's ass. I don't get it, man. I mean, if these guys so religious, why are they letting that blue hair dude just hang around? He's part of the community that I'm sure this Catholic man doesn't believe in.
I don't think Destiny's gay.
You said what?
Yes, he is.
He's in a polygamous relationship with his wife, and he's like very liberal, and he's Christian, ironically.
And another man. Say it, Spider
Nah,
Man.
Interesting topic.
So again, if that's the case, yeah, I don't agree with none of that shit. So far, I'm not in agreement with these dudes, but you know, good luck with that situation. Act like it's an anomaly of abuse is not a thing. It is, just like cheating is a thing. So,
All right.
Hank, I feel like you will straight up like, do you rip heads off of snakes and stuff? Like, I feel like you would just beat somebody ass. Like, you are you a WWF fighter or something? I'm just playing.
Yeah, didn't I tell you people think like this?
Hank is a teddy bear.
I believe it. I could just tell he's tough, and I like that. That's dope.
What do you think, JR?
I was going to Jay next, and I'll go.
Good try, Kelly.
Oh, I'm gonna get it out of him.
But I mean, I think a lot of these things are case by case basis, just like the situation with I'll do another equivalent to the Me Too movement. They were literally treating a person like I forget the Indian comedian's name, but they were putting him in the same circle as a damn, I can't remember none of their names. But essentially they were putting him in the same boat as like a R. Kelly. They were taking somebody who had a date where there were miscommunications or somebody had buyer's remorse, and they were putting it in the same boat as somebody like R. Kelly, who is a actual abuser. You got two people that both made mistakes, but one is severely different, but they were still handling them the same. So when I say that, I'm like, they're speaking to somebody as an abuser versus somebody that made a mistake. They're saying just cut and dry. If this happens, you need to leave. Or if this happens, it's not worth staying. I think everything is a case by case basis. If somebody makes mistakes, should it be treated the same way as somebody who is a serial abuser? I mean, that's a question for y'all. Do you think someone who makes a mistake should be treated the same as a serial abuser? So my thing is, in that case, they're trying to make it seem cut and dry, where it's a case by case basis, and you should deal with it like that. You should deal with it accordingly. You have somebody to say, okay, if this person cheats on me, whether it's by religious standards, I'm done with that relationship. But then you have other people who are in a relationship and there's a lot more elements, so it's a lot more nuance to make a cut and dry decision. Some people stay for financial reasons, some people stay for kids. So nothing can be assessed. You can't just put a blanket over all these circumstances because each of them are nuanced. If in the last 365 days you've gotten your ass whooped for 364 of them, you should have been up out of there. You should have been up out of there. You can't prescribe the same medicine for all these situations because each of them are nuanced.
That was a bar right there at the end, Jay.
Mm-hmm. I actually agree with exactly what you said, but like I guess in the medical field, it's called like a standard of care. So if there's like I guess like a certain like if you're showing certain symptoms, there's going to be an automatic like a baseline of what you're supposed to do, right? Until you get to learning more information to then determine, what, this might just be a common cold versus this being a flu, right? So I do think that needs to take place, which is, I guess, kind of along the lines of what you were saying. Even if it's a mistake doesn't mean it doesn't warrant consequence, right? So there has to be a level of some kind of consequence or intervention in that moment so you can mitigate it, from it happening again or going further. But I don't think it should be to the same level, like what you were saying, if somebody who consistently have a pattern of behavior that occurs.
Yeah, exactly. There's always going to be a consequence. It's, depending on how grave the consequence. Earlier when I was speaking about, me reacting with a slap, that slap had immediate consequences. I got stomped out after it by 15 Timberland boots. That was an immediate consequence. I didn't say, damn, I shouldn't have slapped them because I got stomped out. I said I shouldn't have slapped them because that shouldn't have been handled that way, but I felt threatened, so that happened. There was an immediate consequence to that. So, but you can't just prescribe everything on the same level. But I do. You have to have a baseline. What is the reason this happened? Moving forward, how can we make sure that this never happens again? Are you willing to put in the work? No, you good. You good.
I'm so sorry. I want to use Harriet Tubman as an example. And I thought about her when you said something about the 265 if you stay the whole year, blah blah blah. I want to use Harriet Tubman to prove my point. Now I'm not gonna make this about slaves, so let's just stick on the surface. But Harriet Tubman, you know, she looked around and she saw everybody being enslaved, right? And Harriet Tubman said, okay, today is the day I'm about to choose to change my reality. And she set out to get freed. And then she came back multiple times to actually pull other people out of slavery, right? So Harriet Tubman understood that, okay, this is my situation. What am I going to do about my situation? If I don't like my situation, I can change my situation. And she was even willing to do it at any cost. Now, when we take that same scenario and apply it to what we're talking about today, I'm all about accountability. So yes, we can sit here all day, every day, and I know a lot of people are not going to like me, but that's okay because men are not the enemy. We at the end of the day, you as a woman or as a man have to take accountability for staying in your situation. Period. If you're deciding to stay in a situation that you don't like, it's your responsibility to get out of it, no matter what. You can't say, "Oh, I'm afraid," or you might be afraid, but damn it, Harriet Tubman was afraid too. She was willing to find freedom at every cost, by any means. And all I'm saying is we need to take accountability for the relationships that we put ourselves in, because if you do stay, I can understand the first time. What I tell people on my platform, because women always try to bash the men. What I say is, okay, if a man cheated on you, you shouldn't leave him. Your first instinct should not be to leave. Why? Because you made a covenant. I always tell people, like, if you have not fathomed every type of situation that you could possibly be in within a marriage, you should not be getting married, because forever is the life forever is a long time. So you can't expect that man to not make any type of mishaps or situations that are not necessarily good ones. But at the end of the day, it's like you have to take ownership of the type of people that you get in relationships with.
Definitely. I just want to say something about the video. I don't like how they're trying to have a discussion, but at the same time, I feel like there's a deep sense of I'm better than you. And I don't think I'm going to take what you're saying as serious. I think that it's important in any kind of discussion to be humble, to understand that you could be wrong potentially and they could be right potentially. I've noticed a lot on these panels that, a lot of people will answer from a sense of, I'm better than you. And I think that's, really not a good thing, because you should always be trying to be correct and not right. And there's huge importance in that. Everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to be win. Nobody wants to be wrong. And my thing is I'm always just trying to learn. As long as I learn, I don't care if I'm right or wrong. But as far as what I saw, when it comes to cheating, like, I don't know, if a girl's cheating on me, I'm out. I don't care if we marry. I'm right there with Hank. Like, if somebody's cheating on me, dude's inside my girl, it's over. I don't care, what biblical, whatever. I don't have time for that, because, at the end of the day, DNA stays in a woman with every man that she sleeps with. I don't have time for that. But I definitely agree with what Jay is saying as well. You should definitely treat every situation right then and there, uniquely as its own entity. You shouldn't blanket slate everything. But for me, when it comes to cheating, I don't care if it was a mistake, or if it's you're a serial cheater. When somebody says, if you do this, we're done, I don't care. No, because I already told you, when this happens, it's done, it's over. You do it. It was a mistake. I don't care. You still did it anyway. I'm done with that. I don't have time for that.
What is a mistake? How do you accidentally fall?
What did you say?
How does somebody cheat in a mistaken way? Like, oops, I'm banging a girl out. How does somebody do that?
That's not a mistake.
Right. Cheating is not a mistake.
Oops, I accidentally slipped into your vagina. It's not a mistake.
All right.
Can I speak on it?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's
Yeah, do you have YouTube playing?
Is there echo or something?
Yeah, there's a major echo.
Yeah. Is YouTube playing?
Maybe. Hold on. Technical difficulty.
All right. While she's doing that, let me bring this up a little bit more.
Yeah, but it's a lot easier as a liberal if you're non-religious to just divorce, right? But if you're really, really religious, like really heavily, and you have a lot of pressure from your parents and like society, or like the group that you're coming from, the culture, it's going to be a lot harder for you to divorce because you have the pressure to stick. Because you guys are saying like no matter what happens, you stick in the marriage, even though it might be
But again,
really
to go back,
Melina,
to go back to the point, Nev, 1 second, to go back to the point that I was making, you know, encouraging people to go to church. If somebody's in a situation like that, this is a concern that ought to be brought before the church and taken care of with the elders and the other people that are there. And like, let's say John is beating his wife, right? And his wife comes to the church leadership and she's like, hey, like, this is a problem.
With two black
I want
eyes,
to divorce him.
like, hey,
you know, at that
my
point in
ass.
time, the church leadership can step in and be like, yo, John, why are you beating your wife?
Which honestly, I appreciate them asking. A lot of institutions wouldn't do that.
True. Yeah, there might be valid reasons.
And they ought to. And this is
I've already told her twice.
This is a positive social pressure that comes with being a part of the body of Christ and like actually being involved, right? Like there's so many benefits to people seeking God and going to church and like being a part of a community like that, where a situation like you're describing arising, like there's going to be a ton of social accountability. But when people are atomized and they're separated from the rest of their community and stuff, and they're, you know, they have like a secular conservative home, you don't have that social net to like protect
People used to get lynched for doing things like
we're gonna wrap here pretty soon. We're gonna wrap here pretty soon.
You guys got a lot of endurance.
Brian,
Dude, we still
Brian,
have
I'm curious about your
17,000 viewers
thumbnails.
watching.
I don't think they're very
Crazy.
godlike. Okay,
You
they're
don't
not very
like my
godly. No, the thumbnails.
Brian.
Oh my God, that's right. You got a lot of.
I don't
Brian is
understand. It feels like you're kind of doing the OnlyFans thing here, where
I'm
we're
a
just
man of
posting
God.
like kind of like lewds to get money, and then you're getting all these donations. You know,
sex
it's like the
sells, you would
clickbait.
know.
Yeah, I know
Brian
that why
doesn't
you
need
keep doing
only here,
it. Yeah,
okay?
You're not wrong.
Let's
Isn't
go,
that a little
Nev.
hypocritical?
Go harder.
You're not
Isn't that a
wrong.
little hypocritical?
Go
to
hard.
post
Well,
those?
what do you think my position is?
Your position is
Yeah.
why you're using them. Why are you using the
Positions.
thumbnails with the half
But
naked women?
why?
Because it gets clicks,
MLB
duh.
muted.
Yeah.
But isn't that
MLD's muted, bro.
You're muted.
All right, that was the rest of the video. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, let me tell you. She tried so hard.
Hold on. Somebody.
Yeah, she tried so hard to push her point that she created a straw man after straw man after straw man argument. Look, you know, this is my position. You know, if a woman cheats on her husband and you know what I'm saying? I think for me, it took a lot for that woman to get there. You know what I'm saying? It's not like she woke up one day and walked down the grocery store and she said dick and she went right after that dude, right? For me, it takes a whole lot to get up. It's still an echo. You know, it took a whole lot for that person to kind of get to that point, right? You know what I'm saying? There's an entire series of steps that had happened for that to occur. You know what I'm saying? It's not like they chose one day and it just, you know, and it just happened. I think it just starts off with the small compliments, the small allowing other people to kind of infiltrate your space and infiltrate your perception of like them giving you attention and what that looks like. And I think that it took a whole lot for that person to get there. And quite frankly, I think that they might have even done it before if they allowed that to happen, especially at that higher stake. And sort of at that point, I would like to think that she has lost a great deal of respect. You wouldn't cross that kind of threshold and jeopardize your family, jeopardize your marriage, jeopardize the positive sort of instinct that you have, you know what I'm saying, for a short time fling, right?
Right.
There's
a level of respect that is lost. I don't know, man. As a guy that works in the medical field and sees doctors and nurses cheating all the freaking time, I know a lot of dudes that are doing everything they can to provide for their wives, and their wives are just trying to have fun. A lot of girls, you know, girls just want to have fun. That song exists, right? I know we like to give a lot of girls credit. We like to treat them as some kind of like holier than thou angelic thing, but they're still human and they're prone to doing things that we're similar to being prone to do, right? Some guys will be like, I love my wife, but damn, that chick got a fat ass. Same with a woman, right? A girl's like, I love my man, but damn, he got some big arms. You know, I've been groped and grabbed by women who are married, and you know, and it's just like, yo, what's going on? And just because they're enthralled to do so or feel like they want to have fun in that moment. So I mean, again, I want to give credit to the people that do have marriages and relationships and are able to withhold themselves, and unfortunately are with a bad man or a bad woman, and it escalates over time to where, okay, now I don't feel like I'm being respected in my marriage and I want to have some closure with a woman or a man physically. But there are a lot of instances where there are women out there that, despite being in a good relationship, will fuck it up because they want to have fun, or will fuck it up because they think there's a chance where their life will be elevated or they'll do better. So we can't give them.
Those people have bad character.
But what I'm saying is, there's a lot of that.
It's not like they want to have fun. You know what I'm saying?
You know what I'm saying?
You must got another window open or something.
Yeah, those people lack the integral backbone to hold themselves to a standard and say that I'm not going to do this. Just because other people do it and just because other people want to get involved, that doesn't mean that I have to, you know, roll myself in the same pig pen that everybody is in. You know what I'm saying? I don't really subscribe to that idea.
Well, I mean, there's stats showing this. There was actually, I think it was NBC or CNBC, they did a survey, and they were able to find that a majority of women have backup husbands. So it's not a small group, right? It's not like it was like 1,000 people. It's a good majority of people, right? I you know, whenever I debate people or have conversation, I understand we want to kind of have this idealistic viewpoint of society, relationships, and marriage, and it's nice. Feels good and it sounds great, but at the same time we also have to look at it from a point of, you know, data, stats and statistics, and it's just unfortunate. It's very unfortunate, but in this modern society that has divorce parties and there's a push to just do whatever the hell you want. I mean, the young lady in the video was saying, you know, well, conservatives do this and liberals do that. There's this huge push to just do whatever the F you want and feel there are no consequences for it. Even the ones that are
today. That's the problem of today. Everything that the guy was talking about, he spoke. A lot of today's societal ills would be cleared if you had Christ in your life, if you had a community foundation in your life. A lot of these issues, these temptations, and a lot of these, you know, ills of society would be cleared. You know what I'm saying? If you had these other things in your life, that sort of foundational religious point. You know what I'm saying? If everybody just walked around doing whatever the hell they wanted to do, you know what I'm saying? Why are we complaining about the results that, you know, people end up? We tend to kind of push this sort of sex-free, promiscuous type of culture today. And then people are on the back end talking about, well, people, men ain't this, women ain't that, and always complaining about each other. But yet those people don't have the same integral foundational point to hold themselves to a standard or to a mark. You know what I'm saying? Far too often today, we allow in insert this notion that you could do whatever the hell you want and then turn around and play victim. That's why I always have an issue with the whole Me Too movement, because I find it weird how people will participate in the same sex, open, free culture and at the same time participate in the Me Too, movement. I find that so ironic that you will participate in two separate ideologies and yet hold yourself to no accountability. I understand that it happens.
I agree.
I understand that it happens. You know what I'm saying? But these are able-bodied people who are making sound decisions for themselves.
May I answer the question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, got my sound corrected, I believe. So my belief in all of this is, I think when two people get together, there should be boundaries set. And a lot of people don't have these conversations. They just expect people to see and understand the way they think. And if you lay it out on the table, like I like what Black Spider Guy said, this is just something I'm not going to tolerate. If she cheats, I'm out, right? There's no mistakes. So there are certain things that aren't allowed to be mistakes. If two people come to the table and they said, hey, cheating is off the table, abuse is off the table, I believe these two people should hold true to the word that they said. I don't believe, oh, we got married, let's just stick it out through the cheating and the abuse. No, if that is a boundary that we have set in place and we had this conversation in the beginning, and then you choose to go dip your penis in other waters, I don't think that you should stick that out. They already disrespected and dishonored you. And I don't believe that people should endure through things that they quite frankly shouldn't. No one is going to tell you that they love you and then go off and possibly collect a disease from someone else and bring it back to your bed. No one's going to go get head from a random girl and come back and then kiss you in the mouth and then do the same with you. That is not love. If the person cannot keep their standard and keep the covenant that they made with you, then there isn't one. And I don't believe you should endure through cheating and because there's so many things that can be brought back to the house just from them making a mistake or an accident, or you accidentally slid into someone else's whatever these days. I don't know, or people are sliding in every hole possible. So no, I think that if that is what was set in place, we talked about it, the first moment that he backslaps you, you should leave. If you don't, he's like, oh, she's not serious about what she said. If you say, I'm not going to stand for cheating, and then he cheats me, like, okay, well, let's work it out. He's like, oh, okay. So she wasn't serious about what she said. She's going to stick around. I can do it again. I think staying past the boundary that was crossed tells people that boundary isn't real. So that's my stance on it. And you guys can talk. I have to go. My honey is taking me on a date. So get ready, honey.
Right, honey. You have a good one, Kelly.
Thank you.
Bye, Kelly.
Bye. It was nice talking to you guys. Have a great day. Have a great Sunday. Have a great week.
All right.
Enjoy.
JR. You come with me?
I got you. All right. Anybody else want to speak on this?
I just want to say again that at the end of the day, everybody puts themselves in the situation. That's just on period. And I'm sticking to it. I also believe though, I'm gonna say this, I've grown a lot. I'm 36. When I was in my 20s, I was so quick to, okay, if this guy does, I mean, not only that, but okay, if a situation
I was just going to say, like, I agree that you should have standards, boundaries, things like that. But I also do believe that regardless, like, I don't agree with the sentiment that if you love somebody, you won't hurt them. The only time, many times, is that you only get hurt by the people you love, because if you don't care about them, you won't be hurt, right? So I do think that there is a level of, yes, you have your boundaries, you have your standards, you have that conversation, make it clear up front, like, these are the things that I can and cannot tolerate. And if the person violates that, then it is up to you to whether or not you stick to those standards and boundaries and consequences that you said will occur if something happens, if that happens. But I also think that there is this level of, when you are the person that you don't think that you'll be the one that would like commit the crime, so to speak, you judge people based on that. But when you violate something, you want someone to show you that grace and mercy as well, right? And so a lot of times we point the finger, not realizing that we have three pointing back at ourselves. So we want people to judge us based on our intent, but we judge others based on their actions. And I think, we need to get better at making sure that we are kind of treating people the way we would want them to treat us if we mess up. Do I think a man can cheat on his woman and still love her and it is a mistake? Absolutely. And vice versa. Because when we look at what a mistake is, it just basically, the definition says having or showing faulty judgment or reasoning. I think there are many times in which we show faulty judgment or reasoning. and that is a mistake. But does that mean that when you make the mistake, no consequence should come? That I should give you grace and mercy without having consequence? Depends on what it is, right? But I just think we need to do better at, judging each situation as it is, but also being clear about what our standards of expectations are. And if we end up violating those same standards of expectations that we have on others and we do it ourselves, then we need to hold ourselves to the same account that we would, impose on somebody else.
Boom.
All right. I want to go back to Jane. Go ahead and finish your thoughts. Jane, you there? Is it me? What's going on?
No, I think she froze. She froze just now.
You talking to me?
Yeah.
You saying my name? I didn't realize you knew my real name. Okay, I'm sorry. I was expecting you to say men are not the enemy. Okay, yes. My final thoughts is this. I want to see more Black marriages stick together. If we, no matter what, going back to the conclusion of the topic, if you're in a relationship and it's getting to the point where it's a matter of life and death, then yes, you opt out of it. Opt out of that shit, run like hell. If it's on the verge of resulting in death, then leave. However, I was saying this the other day. I'm 36 years old. When I was in my 20s, I was so quick to just give up on relationships. The moment one thing happened that I didn't like, I'm gone. As a 36-year-old woman, I'm very wise. And I realize that at the end of the day, everybody is going to do, no person is perfect. It doesn't matter if there is a quote unquote perfect man, he and I are still going to have discrepancies and disagreements because we're not the same person. So at the end of the day, I just want to see more Black families stick together and more families in general stick together and realize that, okay, once you do enter a marriage, you are signing on the line to say this is to death do us part. So the whole point of marriage is to commit, is to endure, is to, you'll never be able to say that you've been married 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, if you always leaving the first time something happens that you don't like. So, I mean, today I stand 10 toes down on growth. And growth to me looks like understanding that when I do get in a relationship, when I do get married, my man is going to do things that I don't agree with, but I'm going to be committed to making it work because that's what I want to do. So at the end of the day, nobody deserves abuse, but I just want to say, like, instead of just walking away as your first instinct, like, try to stick it out. You never know what you're capable of overcoming if you always running. So, I mean, notice the red flags before you get into a further relationship. Notice the red flags in the beginning, no matter how fine they is, no matter how big their booty is, how soft it is, how much you jiggle, how built he is, how fine he is. Realize that, okay, they fine as hell, but they not for me before it gets to the point. Because when you make a covenant, it should be forever. It should be. And that's my closing argument. Men are not the enemy.
Yeah, I mean, I find it that a lot of people are practicing jumping from one relationship to another, that they don't stay long enough to find conflict resolution strategies within that current relationship to help them catapult and grow and flourish in their next future relationship, or therefore marriage in the future. And sort of a lot of people are practicing by default divorce before they actually get to a marriage because of all the constant repetition that tends to happen in the dating and courting process. Are you?
All right. Anybody else have anything they want to add to it? Good. Jay, good. Ain't good. Yeah.
But I'm good.
All right. Well, I think it was a good topic, man. When I ran across it this morning, I just thought it was just kind of funny. I didn't make the comparison of cheating is worse than physical abuse. I think everybody has their limits. Everybody has their thresholds. I agree with Jay said earlier. It is situational. I think, and I've always said that it's easy for us to speak on somebody else's experience, but we don't really know what anybody is going through. Somebody's standards might be set high. So the minute you, it's kind of funny, but like I knew this guy that was irritated by the fact that when he would interact with a woman and she scratched his back, he didn't like it. That was his limit. He like, you know what? I can't. I'm turned off. I'm like, it's that bad? I couldn't really understand what he was going through, but who am I to tell him that he shouldn't have kicked her out because of that? But
it was the way that she was doing it.
Huh?
I said it was the way that she was doing it.
I don't know, man. I wasn't there. I just thought it was just funny. I'm like, man, people are weird. But that was how I looked at it from the outside looking in. But him, it could have been the jungle. Who knows? But you just got to be able to respect people's boundaries and experiences. And if you do have whatever standards you set for your relationship and somebody can't respect it, then I think you got to make that decision whether you're going to stay or leave. If it's something that you can't deal with, I think we all should vet heavily, men and women. We should vet on the front end. You're not going to learn everything. So I think when people think that we could figure somebody out, a lot of people mask things and you'll be surprised. And like Jay say, sometimes it takes a trigger to happen. And then you might have to make that assessment right then and there because you never seen it before because it was never aggravated. Like the bear was never poked. I'm pretty sure there's some men out here that didn't know that their woman will put hands on them until she slapped them. And it's like, where the hell did that come from? It doesn't really matter the fact that it happened. Now that guy has to make this decision as far as what he want to do with that. Because there's a possibility he could have been emasculated right then and there. Maybe he done something wrong. Sometimes when you hear that story, you don't get the full story. So I just think everything's situational. Just make sure you move as cautious. Safety is the number one priority. And I learned that working in the railroad, saying that safety is your number one priority. And I think that we should apply that to life. The number one thing is safety. When something goes on, am I safe? Is there a potential of something happening that I have no control of? So seek safety first. Safety can be from yourself. You know, you might know your limit and you might be about to react to something, but think about it. I mean, think about it before you do that because you can spend the rest of your life in jail. Think about it. I mean, think about the people that had to conceal to carry, right? When you use your weapon, it's kind of situational. Just because you got that license don't mean that you can loosely use it. How many times have you seen police officers think they had that power to be able to do that and now caught up with them? And so now you got people, police officers don't even want to police no more because they just can't just do what they want to do no more. So great topic, great discussion. I want to thank everybody on the panel for their perspectives. We did keep it with Sunday energy, so I appreciate that. Everybody good? Do we need to fill out any hurt feelings report? Anybody offended? Because that's situational too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it was a good, productive Sunday conversation. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, I know it's a sensitive topic for some folks, so no pressure. John the Baptist $5 says, Spider-Man, in order to fight a fight crime, you have to pick a side.
Let me just say this. A hero protects everybody, including the people he doesn't want to. That's what makes him a hero. A villain destroys everything around him, right? A villain and a hero are the same thing. They just choose to live their life in a different way. So you don't have to pick a side. The side of a hero is always in the middle. Once you pick a side, you're not a hero anymore. Just so you know.
All right. Shout out to Peter. Marcus Evans says, I agree with Luis and Spider-Man. You said. And then the Black Dragon File says, each person has their own lanes, lines, and boundaries. And during the dating phase, we should get to know what they are as part of evaluating a serious. Here you go again. It's LTR. I don't know what that is. I know TLA. I know, was it TLR on that show or something like that? But this LTR, I don't know what that means. I guess later.
Long-term relationship.
Okay, there we go. I'm old, y'all. I don't know about these abbreviations y'all young folks be doing. Mr. Williams 499 says, cheating is not a mistake. It's intentional. I never mistakenly fell into some box. I intentionally made time for it. Yeah, there you go. You get that phone call late at night. You make a way to get over there. Huh? Dedicated to my children's future. $5 says, thank you for the panel and chat. At the fists, great show. Salute to you. I think more men need to set boundaries as well too. You know, I think more men need to have standards.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't think, I mean, women have standards and that's respected. I'm not here to tell somebody what their standards are, but I do think men have to have standards. Even the people that you are choosing to, you know, stick your penis inside of, I think that you have to have some standards. If you don't want to, if you want to have a worse community, or if you don't want to solve, it all starts within your house. So if we pick better and choose better, we do our part, then I think we can contribute it to maybe having a better community. So then you don't want to deal with no bullshit either, man. You make a wrong decision, man, it can cost you a lot of money. A lot of time. And sometimes you don't know how to handle all that, and it drive you to doing some stupid ass shit, and then you wind up in jail. So,
or you beat yourself up about it, man, for 10 to 15 years. You know what I'm saying? Lose all your confidence. Get scared of people. You know, now you scared of people because you think everybody out to get you because it's one person. So, you know.
Yeah.
I want to tell the fellas too, real quick. Fellas, make sure y'all are asking better questions on first dates. Like, ask better questions. I'm working on putting out a book or a small little pamphlet of questions to ask women when you're dating, because a lot of the times, fellas, y'all do not ask the right questions. But yeah, so make sure y'all are asking the right questions. For an example, are your parents still together? What haven't you healed from? You know, what's your relationship like with your dad? You know, do you believe in God? How do you believe in some, you know, gender roles? You know, there's questions that men need to really ask these women. It don't matter about what she like to eat, what's her favorite color. Those questions are for the birds right now. Like, just, yeah, fellas, just start asking better questions.
Is your phone in your name?
Right. Like, get to the nitty gritty, fellas. Like, see what her morals is, and don't just stop at the looks. I call it the booty trap on my platform. A lot of times, y'all get trapped in the booty trap right between those ass cheeks, because their ass is so damn big. Y'all don't be looking. Y'all gotta see that woman teeth. I'm just saying. I be trying to help the fellas. Like, fellas, like, don't get stuck in that booty trap.
Who co-signed for that car you driving?
Yeah. Have you ever missed rent payments? And how did you make it up?
Man, we be learning all type of slang on this show, man. Booty trap.
Okay, yeah, I don't get caught in the booty trap, big brother.
Don't get trapped in the booty trap.
Don't be a simp.
Baby, you ain't never came to the basement. You come to the basement, you're gonna hear them questions.
There you go. All right, that's the end of the show, y'all. Appreciate it. Hit the like button. Make sure y'all subscribe. Thank you guys again. We out of here.